My parents tried to give my inheritance to my sister, but my grandparents had other plans to ensure fairness in the family. I am a 28-year-old who comes from a family with a long and complicated history of favoritism. My parents, especially my father, have always shown a clear preference for my younger sister, Amy, who is now 25 years old, over me. This favoritism began when we were children and only intensified as we grew older. From my earliest memories, Amy was always treated as the golden child. When I was 5 and she was 2, our parents threw her an extravagant birthday party complete with a bouncy castle, petting zoo, and professional face painters. In stark contrast, for my birthday that same year, I was given a small family dinner and a store-bought cake. This disparity set the tone for the years that followed. As we grew older, the differences in treatment became even more obvious. Amy always received the newest toys, the best clothes, and the most attention. I remember when I was 10 years old, I saved up my allowance for months to buy a new bike. When Amy saw it, she threw a tantrum because she wanted one too. Rather than teaching her about saving or being patient, my parents immediately went out and bought her an even better bike than mine. School was another area where the favoritism was glaringly evident. My parents attended all of Amy's school events but often missed mine. In 4th grade, I had the lead role in the school play, and I was thrilled. I practiced for weeks, excited for the performance. However, on the night of the show, my parents arrived an hour late, missing my big scene. Amy had a stomachache, they said, and they were trying to relieve her pain. I found out later that she was okay. They had just mistakenly thought it was night while playing with her. When it came to academics, nothing I did seemed to measure up in their eyes. During middle school, I consistently earned straight A's, joined the math club, and even won a regional science fair. My parents barely acknowledged these accomplishments, but when Amy received a B+ on a single test in her weakest subject, they celebrated with a special dinner and bought her a new phone to motivate her to keep improving. High school was particularly challenging for me. I threw myself into every activity I could find, hoping to earn their approval. I became captain of the debate team, editor of the school newspaper, and maintained a 4.0 GPA. Meanwhile, Amy coasted through school, barely maintaining a C average and spending most of her time partying with friends. During my junior year, I was selected as one of 2 students from our school to attend a prestigious summer program at Harvard. It was an incredible honor, and I was ecstatic. When I shared the news at dinner, my father merely grunted and immediately changed the subject to Amy's upcoming dance recital. My mother, at least, said, "That's nice," but quickly moved on. The night of Amy's recital happened to fall on the same day I was scheduled to leave for Harvard. My parents couldn't drive me to the airport because they didn't want to miss Amy's performance, so I had to ask a friend's parents for a ride. The process of applying to college was also very painful. I worked on my writings, did extracurricular activities, and studied for the SATs for months. I got into a number of top colleges and was given a large scholarship to go to my dream school. When I told my parents about this at dinner, they didn't say much in answer. "That's good, but don't let it get to you," my dad told me. "Going to college isn't everything." My mom said, "Just don't forget about us when you're off becoming a big shot." When Amy almost finished high school and chose not to go to college, on the other hand, my parents were totally on board. They told her she was great for being true to herself and not giving in to social forces. They even gave her a car as a graduation present, which is something they never did for me. It hurt me a lot to feel like I was always being favored. During my teens and early 20s, I had a lot of problems with anxiety and sadness. Going to therapy in college helped me learn that it wasn't my fault that my parents were acting the way they were. It took me years of hard work to boost my self-esteem and learn how to accept myself without needing support from my parents. I was able to make a good life for myself even though my close family didn't help me. I got good grades in college, got a good job in business, and even bought my own house by the time I was 27. Some people aren't proud of what I've done, but I am. This is where the story truly begins. Not long ago, my grandfather on my father's side passed away. He had a very successful business career, building his wealth from nothing, and left behind a substantial estate. In his will, he decided to distribute all of his property among his grandchildren, including me, Amy, and our cousins, as well as his children, my father and his brothers. My share of the inheritance was significant, amounting to approximately $500,000. This sum could have allowed me to pay off my student loans, save for the future, and possibly even start my own business one day. I felt grateful for this unexpected windfall, and the opportunities it could bring. However, when the will was read, my parents were visibly upset. They pulled me aside afterward and expressed that they felt it was unfair for me to receive an equal share. They argued that Amy needed the money more because she was struggling, working only part-time at a coffee shop, and living in our parents' basement. I was shocked by their reaction but remained calm. I explained that this was Grandpa's decision, and it wasn't up to them to change it. Despite this, they insisted that I should do the right thing and give my share to Amy. When I refused, they became angry and began guilt-tripping me, accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful. My father then recounted every instance he could remember where they had supported me, including paying for my braces, which were medically necessary, buying me school supplies, which were the bare minimum, and allowing me to live at home during college, even though I worked part-time to contribute to expenses. He conveniently ignored the fact that they had bought Amy a car, indulged her in countless shopping sprees, and were still financially supporting her at the age of 25. The situation quickly escalated. As the executor of the will, my father decided to take matters into his own hands. He announced that he would reinterpret Grandpa's wishes and give my entire share to Amy, in addition to her own inheritance. He claimed that this is what Grandpa would have wanted if he had been aware of our individual circumstances. I was devastated. Not only was this clearly illegal, but it also painfully reminded me of how little my parents valued me. I tried to reason with them, pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all his grandchildren equally and was fully aware of our situations. My mother then accused me of speaking ill of the dead by suggesting that Grandpa would have wanted anything different from what my father was proposing. I mentioned specific memories of Grandpa encouraging my academic and career pursuits, but my parents dismissed these as misunderstandings. They claimed that Grandpa had privately expressed concern about Amy's future and wanted to ensure she was taken care of. When I asked why he hadn't simply written the will that way, they had no answer. Amy, for her part, appeared uncomfortable with this situation but did not speak out against our parents. When I tried to discuss it with her privately, she merely shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best." It became clear that she would not be of any help. Feeling deeply hurt and betrayed, I reached out to my paternal grandmother, who is Grandpa's widow, for advice. She was furious when she learned what was happening. She assured me that this was absolutely not what Grandpa had intended and that my parents had no right to alter the will. Grandma then shared some information that brought new clarity to the situation. Apparently, a few years ago my parents had approached Grandpa, asking him to leave everything to Amy in his will. Grandpa had firmly refused, stating that he believed in treating all his grandchildren equally. He had even added a clause to his will that stipulated anyone who contested the equal distribution would forfeit their share. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents. They were shocked that Grandma had revealed their previous attempt to influence the will. My father tried to justify their actions by claiming they were simply looking out for Amy's future, but I could see the guilt written on their faces. Immediately, Grandma took action. She contacted her lawyer and the other executors of the will, and she also reached out to my father's siblings, who were just as outraged as she was by my father's actions. Together, they managed to put a stop to my father's plan and ensured that the will would be executed as Grandpa had intended. My parents had no choice but to back down, but they were furious with me. They accused me of turning the family against them and insisted that I should have handled the matter privately instead of involving others. My mother cried, saying that I had betrayed them and torn the family apart. My father even threatened to cut me out of their will entirely, to which I responded that I had never expected anything from them anyway. Now, they are threatening to cut me off completely if I accept the inheritance, as they believe it proves my disloyalty. My father went as far as to say that if I take the money, I will no longer be welcome in their home. In a particularly hurtful moment, my mother claimed that my acceptance of the inheritance showed that I never really loved them and was just waiting to cash in on their deaths. The extended family is now divided over this issue. Some of my cousins have been supportive, acknowledging the long-standing favoritism and commending me for standing up for myself. However, others believe that I should have simply given in to maintain peace, arguing that family harmony is more important than money. My father's siblings are firmly on my side, but this has led to increased tension between them and my parents. Amy finds herself caught in the middle of all this turmoil. She confided in me privately that she never asked for any of this and feels guilty about the situation, but she is unwilling to stand up to our parents. I don't entirely blame her. She has been conditioned her whole life to rely on them and seek their approval. Yet a part of me wishes she would support me just this once. This entire situation has dredged up a lot of old pain and resentment. I can't help but think back to all the times I was overlooked or dismissed in favor of Amy, the birthday parties I never had, the school events my parents missed, the accomplishments that went unrecognized. It feels as though a lifetime of unfairness is coming to a head in this one moment. Despite everything, I am standing my ground and plan to accept my inheritance as Grandpa intended, but the whole situation has caused a significant rift within the family. My parents are barely speaking to me, and family gatherings have become tense and uncomfortable. Just last week, I skipped our monthly family dinner for the first time ever because I couldn't bear to face the cold shoulders and accusatory glares. In the midst of all this drama, a small part of me feels empowered. For the first time in my life, I am standing up to my parents' unfair treatment. I am asserting my worth and refusing to be sidelined. It is both terrifying and liberating at the same time. I believe I'm in the right, but the family drama is undoubtedly taking a toll on me. I have started experiencing anxiety attacks again, something I haven't dealt with since college. I'm seriously considering going back to therapy to help cope with all this stress. Am I wrong for accepting my inheritance and refusing to give in to my parents' demands? Should I have just handed over the money to Amy to keep the peace? I'm tired of being the family's scapegoat, but I'm also afraid of losing my family entirely. Any advice or perspective would be greatly appreciated. Update. A lot has happened since my first post, which was about 6 months ago. Thank you to everyone who helped me through a tough time by being there for me and giving me advice. First, let me talk about what the law says. Many of you recommended that I talk to my own lawyer, which I did. His word was that what my dad was trying to do was against the law and that I had every right to my property. He helped me write down everything and was ready to go to court if I needed to. Thank goodness that didn't happen. Things were worked out between my grandmother, her lawyer, and my dad's brothers without having to go to court. As written, the will was carried out and I got my whole fortune. My dad was taken off as an administrator because he tried to change the will. It was very stressful and took a few weeks to finish. There were tense meetings, angry phone calls, and even a few lawsuit threats from my parents. But in the end, the law got clear, and they had to give up. But the effects on the family have been big and are still going on. When I first asked them, my parents pushed back even more. They said I was selfish and didn't care about my sister. Some even tried to get other family members to turn against me by saying I had tricked or twisted Grandpa into leaving me money. Lucky for them, most of the family saw through their lies. A family get-together about a month after the will was settled had one very bad event. My parents showed up without being asked. They made a mess because my aunt, who was hosting, hadn't asked them to come. My father began to yell that I had stolen from Amy and turned Grandma against them. My mom threw an old picture album at me in a big way and told me I ruined all these happy memories. It was painful and embarrassing, and it took several family members to calm things down and ask my parents to leave. My grandmother, bless her heart, was my biggest supporter during this whole thing. She told me stories about how my grandfather was always proud of what I had done and how he wanted all of his grandkids to have the same chances in life. She even said that Grandpa had kept a scrapbook of all the things I had done well, like newspaper clippings of awards I had won in school, copies of my letters of acceptance to college, and even the program from that school play my parents were late to. The news of this was both heartwarming and sad. Grandma also took it upon herself to tell the rest of the family the truth. She held a family meeting where everyone but my parents was present. There she told us all about my parents' favoritism throughout history, including things I had forgotten or never even heard of. Someone finally recognizing the unfair treatment I had been through for years made me feel better, but it also brought up old scars. My sister Amy finally found her voice through all of this. After some deep thought and a few long talks with our grandmother, she came up to me alone and said she was sorry she hadn't stood up for me earlier. She said she knew our parents' preference was wrong but had been afraid to speak out against it. A lot of tears came up as we talked about our childhoods and how they changed us both. Amy admitted that being the favorite kid wasn't as great as she thought it was. She was under a lot of stress to meet our parents' high standards, so she never learned how to walk on her own. It was hard for her to do things on her own sometimes because our parents would step in and do everything for her. This kept her from growing and learning from her mistakes. Our relationship took a big step forward after this talk. We began to fix the relationship between us that had been broken by our parents' preference. We've been getting coffee together every week, just the two of us, to talk and help each other get through this family chaos. Amy shocked everyone when she said she was going to college with the money she got from her fortune. Watching me stand up for myself made her want to take charge of her own life, she said. She started out at a nearby community college and hopes to move on to a 4-year college once she knows what she wants to study. The shock hit our parents hard. They must have known that babysitting Amy wasn't helping her. My parents have had a range of reactions to all of this. They were very angry with both of us at first. They said I turned Amy against them and tried to make her feel bad about it so she would quit college to help support the family. They tried something else when that didn't work. After having a few long talks with my grandmother and seeing how Amy had changed for the better, my mom began to understand how their actions had been hurtful. She has been taking small steps toward getting back together with him. She has even started therapy to work on her problems. I got a message from her saying she was sorry for being unfair and asked for a chance to make things right. The process is taking a long time. I'm cautiously hopeful, but I'm also setting clear limits. Sadly, my dad has been less ready to say he did anything wrong. He is still mad and thinks he is being hurt by everything. He doesn't talk to me much and hasn't been nice to Amy since she set her mind on going to college. He has tried to trick us by saying he will forgive us if we accept we were wrong, or by saying he will sell the house we grew up in if we don't change our minds. Even though we're both strong, it hurts to see him push both of his kids away like this. The relationships of extended families have changed a lot. I've grown closer to my grandmother and the brothers of my dad, who have been very helpful. Having my aunts and uncles talk about how they've dealt with my dad's bad behavior over the years has made me feel less alone in this battle. I've also grown closer to some of my cousins who were there for me. We've started having a cousin dinner once a month so that we can all meet up without having to deal with the drama of the older generation. As for me, I've been smart about how I spend my fortune. When I paid off my school loans, I felt like I had a lot of money in my pocket. With the help of a financial expert, I've put together a wide range of investments. I have also saved some money in case I want to start my own business someday. I'm thinking about starting a community center that gives low-cost classes on money management and mental health. But the most important thing I've done with the money is pay for my own therapy and offer to do the same for Amy. We're both trying to get over the bad things that happened to us as kids and learn how to set good limits with our parents. It will take a long time, but I already feel like I'm getting better at understanding and getting over the effects of being emotionally neglected and favored for a long time. Unexpectedly, this whole thing has made some good things happen in my life. Set limits and stand up for yourself are two things I've learned a lot. There have been hard days, but I know I did the right thing. I'm proud of myself for not giving in to the guilt and pressure. One thing that surprised me the most was that my job goals changed. Going to therapy and dealing with all this family drama has made me understand how much I want to help other people who have been through similar family problems. This makes me think about going back to school to become a family therapist who specializes in helping adult children whose parents were not emotionally grown. I've also started mentoring kids from hard-to-reach families at a neighborhood youth center as a volunteer. It makes me so happy to be able to give kids the support and guidance I wish I had when I was their age. I might even use some of my inheritance to start a scholarship fund for kids in the same position as me. My relationship with Amy keeps getting better. Our family now has a monthly siblings day, when we do something fun together. When we hiked and had lunch last month, we felt the most at ease and connected we have since we were kids. Our parents aren't affecting our relationship, so we're slowly getting back together on our own terms. In terms of my parents, things are still hard. I've been trying to get along with my mom again. She's been going to therapy on a daily basis and has even begun to realize that her favoritism hurts some people. Some lunches have been just the two of us, and we've had some honest, if tough talks about the past and how we can move on. It's not perfect, but it's a step forward. My dad, on the other hand, still doesn't want to change. He still says he didn't do anything wrong, and Amy and I are not thankful. Because he won't be in the same room as me, he has missed a few family events. Even though it hurts, I'm learning to accept that I can't change how he acts or how he sees things. Grandma is now a rock for Amy and me. She has been telling us more stories about our grandpa and how proud he would be that we are strong. It's also been great having her help settle family arguments, always fighting for justice and understanding. This whole thing has taught me a lot about what family really means. I've learned that the family you choose can be better than the family you're born into sometimes. My aunts, uncles, and cousins who stood by me have become closer, and I've also made a close-knit group of friends who have been very helpful during this whole thing. I've also learned how important it is to take care of myself and set limits. I'm getting better at saying no to things that are bad for my mental health, and I no longer feel bad about putting my own health first. It's even made me try new hobbies and interests that I had been putting off because I was so focused on getting my parents' approval. People in the same boat should remember that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even if it makes other people angry. Even if things get tough in the family, everyone has the right to be treated fairly and with respect. If you need to, go to therapy. Surround yourself with people who will help you, and don't be afraid to set limits. It's not how your family treats you that makes you valuable. It's who you are. Again, thank you to everyone who helped and gave advice. You have no idea how much it meant to me during a very hard time. Even though the road hasn't been easy, I feel more hopeful and sure of myself than I have in years as I look forward to the future. I'm looking forward to seeing where this new part of my life takes me. I'm also determined to break the cycle of favoritism and make my future family ties healthier. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.